name is Matt, and I am Gary's son. And even though words are my thing and words are what I do, as much as I'd like to be able to express these words to you in person tomorrow, I just know that I'll be unable to do so. And so I'd like to record it and kind of read for you guys my recollection of my dad as we celebrate him today. There aren't enough words to adequately describe the giant of a man that my dad was. It honestly seems kind of ludicrous to even try to summarize who he was with words and paper. How do you adequately express all of your thoughts and feelings about someone who has gone on and left such a huge void in their absence? Someone whose footprints are literally and figuratively so incredibly huge that I feel like I could live 10 lifetimes and never fully fill them. But despite feeling like these words will fall so short, I can't help but try to communicate what my dad meant to me on this day that we celebrate who he was. There's so many words that come to mind when I think about who Gary Dale Tibbit was. But in summary, my dad was the very definition of who God intended a man and a father to be. As a father, he was a faithful provider. I can't remember a single time in my entire life where I went without what I needed. And that was due to he and mom too, of course, working so hard and so faithfully throughout my life. But what set dad apart as a provider was the fact that he spent nearly his entire adult life, straight out of high school, faithfully working for one single employer. He did 41 plus years at Facet, and these days that is unheard of. But what also set him apart, though, was not only did he put in more than a full work week at Facet that usually started at 5 a.m., but then he came home and he put in even more on the farm. Hard work was my dad's way of life. Cutting wood to keep us warm, fixing fence, working cows, mowing, brush hogging, just to name a few. There was probably never a day where my dad rested because his punch list was done. More than likely, he rested here and there because he knew the punch list would never, ever be done. In fact, even though he's passed and his days are done, the punch list still isn't. But he never let work in the farm consume him to the point that he didn't have time to help others or to be present for Mom, Becky, Jeremy, myself, and the family. I remember when Kelsey, my wife, and I bought our own little 40-acre square a couple years back. Dad had come out in the beginning to help me build some fence, and I was talking about all the things that I had planned to do on this property that had been neglected. I was going to clear blackberry patches, fix the fence on the lot, put in fence for the upper lot, the corral I was going to build, cattle guards, and so on. My dad looked at me and said, "You know how to eat an elephant, son? One bite at a time, but your little girls won't be little forever." And that was it. That's all he said. But that was my dad's priority list in a nutshell. Family first, work and farm second. But in fact, I think work and farm had a lot more to do with family for Dad than it did with just working and farming. Speaking of work, the man could literally fix anything. And this was all before Google. A calculator could not count all the times I watched that man's hands work wonders on our old cars, the old tractor that he was the third generation owner of in the Tibbit family, our relatives' cars, our house, Grandpa Lloyd's house, Meemaw's house, Maverick's house, anyone's house, and so on. He always had a solution for everything. The best illustration that sticks out of my mind is Mom and Dad's old dryer. I believe it was a hand-me-down to them when they first got married. The bearings on the dryer basin had gone out, but Dad figured out that a 30-30 shell with the ends cut off worked pretty well as a substitute. Not sure how many 30-30 casings that dryer went through over the years, but I'm sure it was quite a few, and we had usually had plenty of those 30-30 shells laying around after each deer season. But even more than just knowing how to fix things, Dad cared about passing on that desire to try to fix things and the knowledge of how to fix things to me. I remember him telling me that I was going to change Becky's brake pads on her old Nissan when I was still in high school. He literally explained how to do it to me one night, and then he left to go to work the next day and expected me to get it done. Maybe he should have started me out with something a little less life-threatening, but it worked out all right. He got home after work that day and inspected and said, "Good job, bub." His praise meant the world to me. I told him before he passed, when I was at the hospital, that every time I work on my own farm or my own broken stuff, that I see his hands when I see mine. And the knuckles and wrinkles on his hands were burned into my brain through all those years of handing him tools and holding a light while I watched his hands work. And I told him that my hands looked just like his. Speaking of him fixing things, I'm pretty sure that I could spend the rest of my life trying to help others with the knowledge and ability he tried to pass on to me, and I will never, ever come close to equaling the many, many times that he went out of his way to fix stuff for and help others. He was the go-to guy for so many at times when something broke or needed maintenance or someone just needed some muscle. Friends, family, neighbors, strangers. I remember he was taking me to school one morning, my freshman year of high school, and there was ice on the road in places from a storm that had happened that week. And right as we came around the last corner before our road intersected the highway, there was an old black Chevy C10 that had hit an icy patch and ended up in the ditch. The dad of that truck was in the driver's seat while his son, a kid I recognized from middle school, who was a couple years younger than me, was trying to push the truck out of the ditch. Dad started to pull over, and my first response was, "Dad, I'm going to be late for school." And the next word he said have been stuck on my brain for 2 decades now, and they will be until I die. In fact, I thought of them today when the girls and I offered to tow a guy's minivan when his linkage on his transmission went out. Dad said that day, "Son, one day you'll be stuck in a ditch and you'll need someone to help you out." And then he just got out of the truck and went to help the young kid push his dad out of the ditch. Of course, I got out and helped too. I remember one thought in my brain was that my shoes were going to get dirty. But no lie, anytime I try to help a stranger out, I think of that day. And I don't worry about my shoes anymore. But that story pretty much summed up my dad's heart at its core. If he could help, he did. The world would be a much better place if people, mostly myself included, operated with the mentality of Gary Tibbit. If you can help, help. As a man, my dad was a protector. And of course, I always felt safe when he was around, especially when I was in the deer woods and it was dark. If I knew he was nearby, I would be okay. But I think that at a deeper level, there are a lot of people in this world, family, friends, and so on, who Dad looked out for, stuck out his neck for, and cared for outside of Mom, Becky, and I. To name a few, Meemaw, Grandpa Lloyd, Dad's sister Karen, my aunt, Aunt Debbie, Cousin Jeremy, who lived with us from 8th grade until he graduated high school, Cousin Jared, Mom's sisters, Dad's cousin Harm, and I could go on and on. And in fact, there are probably people here today who are here celebrating a man who looked out for them at some point or another that I'm not even aware of. But the very best example that comes to mind when I think of Dad looking out for and protecting someone is someone I call Uncle Maverick, who recently passed away. Dad had an obligation to look out for his own mother, his own father, his own family, but he had no such connection to Maverick, who was not blood. He was merely someone that Dad got to know at boot camp. Although Maverick liked to claim that he was blood on Great-Grandma Sylvia's side, the Collins side. But I watched my dad look out for, care for, be kind to, and protect that odd, at times overbearing man for decades upon decades. Dad took Maverick to buy groceries, helped Maverick manage his money, took Maverick to his appointments, brought Maverick to our Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners like family, where Maverick would consume more food than any other human I've ever seen in my life. And then he would usually take a plate or two home. He would fix stuff at Maverick's old farmhouse. And when Maverick's old farmhouse burned down and Maverick was homeless, Dad built a temporary room inside of a barn where Maverick lived. And then Dad fixed up the house that Maverick bought after he was put on mental disability. Dad took Maverick deer meat and food and so on and so on and so on. And Dad did so much more throughout my life I'm not even aware of for someone I call Uncle Maverick. Why? Because it was easy? No. Because Maverick repaid him in some way? No. Because Maverick was such great company? Sometimes. Dad looked after Maverick because, let's face it, Maverick had special needs. He needed help, and it was the right thing to do. And while others would try to mistreat Maverick, which I had seen with my eyes, or take advantage of Maverick, which had happened in his life even at the hands of his own family, Dad looked out for and cared for Maverick faithfully for years. Now, as a human, my dad was kind. In fact, I can't really ever remember a single time where my dad treated someone in a way that I wouldn't want my kids to treat someone. He was always so friendly and warm to everyone, and he never, in my memory anyway, treated anyone mean or harsh. And I'm sure there were times that he didn't really live up to my elevated recollection that I have of him in my mind. But I really think the response of the community after Dad passed away recently points toward everyone seeing the same consistency and kindness that I did in my dad's life, even if he wasn't perfect. My sister said, and I heard a family friend say it too, you'd be hard pressed to find someone that didn't like your dad. I wish the same could be said of me. But my dad's kindness towards others is most definitely outshined by the sweetness that he showed towards his grandkids and his great-grandkids. He loved them more than anything else in the world, and it kills me to think that so many of his grandkids and great-grandkids didn't get to reach adulthood before they lost their pawpaw. And it absolutely destroys me to think of my mom, living even one day without her protector, her companion, her best friend, her guy. Apart from boot camp, a few work trips through the years, and the deer seasons apart before Mom started hunting herself, Dad has been right by Mom's side since high school for 41 years. And I think that's the bottom line. There's so many people, Mom, myself, Becky, Cousin Jeremy, Cousin Jared, Aunt Debbie, Aunt Karen, Meemaw, Grandpa, Maverick, Kevin, Dad's cousin Harm, and the list could go on and on, who my dad played such a huge part in their life as a family member, as a friend, as a helper, as a protector, a provider, a rock, and an anchor. And now he's gone. The anchor of our family for decades is gone. And there's such a huge void. And it will never be the same. Never. And as much as it hurts, I truly am thankful for the pain. I'm thankful that the passing of my dad feels like my world is broken, like my family's world is broken. Because as a youth minister, I've seen so many students who don't even know their dad, so many students who aren't really even connected to their dad, or many who don't even really care for the dad that they do have. I have seen so many kids who, if they were put in my shoes today, mourning the loss of their father, they would be sad maybe, but it would not shatter them like it is shattering me and my family. The hurt and pain that I feel, we feel, is a reminder that the man who fathered me and raised me is the greatest man I will ever know. And more than once, over the past few days when I have broken down, I have prayed a prayer of thanks. Thanks that it hurts so much. Thanks for how sad I am. And thanks for how sad and broken my family is over his passing, because the pain points to the greatness of who he was. And I can only hope when I die, hopefully a long time from now, that I leave such a huge void and impression like my dad did on my family and on the world. As strange as this sounds, I can only hope that there are as many broken, hurting people who feel like they've lost their protector, their provider, their helper, and friend when I pass, because it will mean that I had lived my life like him, and ultimately just as God wants us all to live out our days, loving others, serving others, and in doing so, loving him. And then maybe, just maybe, I had done my job of filling Gary Tibbit's big size 14 shoes. Thank you.